I'm going to review is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Now this is the 4th book in the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. If you didn't know, you lived under a rock. I don't know, maybe you did. It's fictional, obviously. It's about a boy wizard. And it is probably one of the longer books I'm going to be reading this year. I usually don't read books that are that long. I usually read quite short novels where not much happens. But a lot happens in this book, from the very first chapter to the Triwizard Tournament to the Quidditch World Cup at the very beginning. There's a lot going on and a lot to squeeze in, and she did it in a very succinct way. Even though there are a lot of pages in this book, she managed to pull it all together without kind of going on a lot on every little detail. Now, the tasks in the tournament itself are very kind of fast-paced, as are all the sort of action that unfolds in this book, but I found myself most drawn to the memories and the storytelling aspect of not only the characters like Sirius, but also in Dumbledore's memories in the Pensieve. I found that the thing that most intrigued me was the story of Barty Crouch, or rather Barty Crouch Jr., and that is what really kind of almost frightened me a little bit when I was reading it, or rather I was listening to the audiobook by Stephen Fry, which by the way was very, very good. I do recommend it. But that's really what kind of resonated with me the most, and why I actually went back and reread this, because I have read this book before when I went through at the end of 2010 and I read them all for the very first time, but I haven't gone back and read any of those books, and this was the only book where I really felt like I needed to go back and reread it, because there were so many details within that book. And it was really the first time that Harry Potter seemed to be more of not an adult's book, but it was kind of edging out of that children's genre and into, say, more young adult, or even, I don't know, I think any adult could enjoy this book without thinking that it was a little bit below them. One of the major themes, I think, of this book was growing up, and Voldemort's back, and it really sets the tone for the rest of the books, which are a lot darker and a lot sort of scarier and sadder, and not as sort of optimistic as the first definitely 2 books were. It's also matured a lot in the way that Harry has that affection for Cho Chang. Now, I always believed his fondness for Cho Chang a lot more than his fondness for Ginny in the later books, even though it's obviously a lot more pure and a lot more real to him. And I think it's because in J.K. Rowling's writing, I like to be shown a romance and not just hear about it. So when she was talking about Harry and Ginny, she just told the audience or the reader that Harry had like felt for her, but the books didn't really show it. Whereas when she was talking about Cho Chang, how Harry slipped some of his drink down the front of his shirt, that kind of thing, it shows how his affection is growing rather than tells you that, like, oh yeah, by the way, I like this girl. Now, as I said before, I didn't actually read the physical book this time, and don't even give me any of that about, well, that's not really reading if you're not physically reading the book, because if you listen to an audiobook, you are experiencing the language and the language use, and you are still, you know, feeling everything you feel when you read the book. It's just the physical act of like holding a book and turning the pages and looking at things. So, yeah, fuck you. It's still reading, okay? Ish. Kind of. I don't know, but it's not any less worth it. And you're still kind of consuming the book, so just shut your face. One thing I do recommend with audiobooks, and I do encourage people to use audiobooks, I feel like not many people use audiobooks. And for that matter, not many people listen to podcasts. I'm always surprised by the amount of my friends who like have never listened to a podcast in their life. I'm just like, how are you even alive? Like, I don't even understand. The ones that I recommend for the Harry Potter ones are definitely the British ones, because first of all, I recommend the Harry Potter, the British versions, because those are the only ones I've had, and ignorance is something that is bad, but I'm gonna, you know, use it in this case. But I mean, if something is written in a certain way, like, don't change it just for another culture. Like, I'll understand. I will make that connection. You don't need to change the words for me. I really suggest that all of you try and get your hands on a British version of the book, or the British podcast and the British audiobook. And the reason I say the British audiobook is because the British audiobook is read by the king of the motherfucking world, Stephen Fry. You don't like Stephen Fry? you can go die in a hole. Because if you don't like Stephen Fry, chances are you're an asshole. Chances are you are a big old bitch. He's excellent and brilliant, and he does the voices so well. Sorry, I'm just typing in my password while I do this. Hey girl, hey. He does the voices so well. Even Hermione's he does, you know, reasonably well. I particularly like the way he does Hagrid. It's really kind of, he's got the accent there. I feel like it's kind of paying homage to the movies a little bit, but also doing like Nymphadora's quite Scottish in it. It's just really interesting, and I love how he does them, and he commits to it. And I'm just thinking it must be really hard to record an audiobook. It must be a really time-consuming task, but he does it, and he does it with passion, and he does it with grace, and it's really great and entertaining. Some things I thought I should mention before I finish this video. A Harry Potter musical and a Harry Potter sequel completely changed my viewpoint of the books. Now every time I hear anyone mention Draco Malfoy, I think, did someone say Draco Malfoy? And then Lauren Lopez like walking out like, what? Also, I think the movie adaptation of this is absolutely terrible because it doesn't touch on some of what I think are the most interesting plot points, like the Barty Crouch story. Also, it doesn't mention Sirius really whatsoever. I mean, it does, but doesn't. And also, Hagrid and the Giants and Bill, and I just don't know what happened to all of the characters. They were kind of screwed over in the movies, and all of the house elves were kind of screwed over in the movies too. What would Hermione say? I know I couldn't talk about everything that was in that book, so please, dialogue, discussion in my Chamber of Secrets, if you will. And there's some serious innuendos in some of the language that is used in this book. I believe Harry at one point yells at Ron, "I swear I didn't enter." I mean, really?